Hi, everybody. It's me, Doug. It's just me. Nobody else is here. It's just me. This is the Doug Dynasty Show. Welcome to Doug Dynasty, where we make um, Doug calls, Doug decoys for your viewing pleasure. Big market for that, I'm sure. As the great philosopher of our day and age, oh gosh, Keith Anderson, that's his name, once said, don't call me on the phone, just ring my dinner bell. And yep, that's that's the Doug call from Doug Dynasty. All right. So yeah, it's just me. We're gonna run through this pretty quick because everybody else is working and I just started a new job this week and we're gonna go fast. But in the same time, if you do have any questions, of course, as we're live, throw them in the chat. I'll see them and I'll give you my best answer that I possibly can. And in the meantime, if you don't catch us live, you're watching us later, make sure to hit us up on Discord or you can hit us up on X. One of us will be on there basically all the time. So, a couple different ways to reach us if you're not with us live on the show. But of course, live is the best way to reach us every single week. One of us, at least, usually at least two of us, will be here and we'll answer your questions. But let's go ahead and get started. This is where we looked like heading into last week's worth of games. Tug had a 3-goal advantage. Hoping to close that gap at least a little bit and start it off right. Now, you might think, hey, doesn't Tug deserve a skunk for this, picking North Texas and UCLA on Friday? And I say no. No skunks handed out this week because everybody did really good, actually. And also, Tug went 0 for 2 on the slot, not 0 for 3. And that's my new made-up rule for skunks that I just came up with when I realized I didn't put a skunk on here 5 minutes ago. So we're going to go with that. We're going to say that's the rule. I am very surprised at North Texas's inability to score anymore. They seem to have forgotten how to do that. And I thought that's the one thing North Texas would be good at. Turns out they can't do anything now. So North Texas fell off a cliff a little bit. Also, that little run UCLA had came to an end. I did call it. I picked Washington. I figured Washington was going to beat UCLA by at least 10 points. And yeah, this is what we got here, 31-19 Washington. Started off Saturday very well for all of us. All picked Texas, Clemson, and Colorado. If anybody saw that Clemson game, you saw how close that was. Took a Cade Klubnik 50-yard scramble out of nowhere to get this win. Pitt was much stronger in the second half than Clemson was the entire stretch there, but Cade Klubnik found a way to get it done. And it really bothered me how much everybody was talking about, Texas looks just fine. Texas is a class the SEC right now. Y'all just beat a bad Arkansas team 20-10. Like, I know they might end up being bowl eligible, this Arkansas team. If Ohio State beat Northwestern 20-10, very similar record, by the way, to Arkansas Northwestern. If Ohio State only won that game 20-10, people would be up in arms. So I don't think Texas is there fully. They're missing something on that offensive side of the ball, at least. Holding Arkansas to 10 isn't that impressive to me either. That's where we're at. Then Colorado unloaded on Utah, as did Tulane on Navy, 35-0. We all picked Tulane. I don't think any of us would have expected this, though. 35-0 is crazy. This is the first championship game set then. Tulane will play Army for the American Athletic Conference Championship in a couple of weeks. Princeton at Yale. Yale ran away with this one, very surprised. But the crown jewel of the slide here. Central Connecticut got taken to double overtime, but they did get the win over Robert Morris, and I was the only one to call it. Very happy with that for two reasons. Number one, the obvious, I get a point, everybody else doesn't. But number two, Central Connecticut is one win away from clinching their first ever FCS playoff berth. They need to upset Duquesne this coming Saturday in order to be able to do that. And of course, we'll be picking that game in a little bit. Not giving any spoilers right now. Moving right along, Sacred Heart closes their season with a win over Merrimack at Merrimack. I got that one right. Love to see it. Only one pick Sacred Heart here. I said on the show, I believe, that I have no good reason to pick Sacred Heart, but I did anyway, and here we are. Very nice. We all picked Holy Cross over Bucknell. I can't believe it was this close. Bucknell's had a great story this season. Holy Cross figured it out when it came to league play, getting it done. And then I am surprised that Marshall beat Coastal Carolina as handily as they did. It ended up being the same score as that Washington UCLA game, 31-19. We all did pick the Thunder and Herd, though. New Hampshire pulled off the upset over Stony Brook. This knocks Stony Brook out of the race for the CAA title. I don't know for sure if this pulls Stony Brook out of the race for a playoff berth. It feels like it should. Like, this isn't the first time they got upset by somebody random. And there's another chance to do that this week. So we'll see what happens with Stony Brook. I'm not convinced this is a playoff team at this point, but it would be cool to see somebody new up there. And then Illinois State, again, kind of quietly making a name for themselves as a legitimate playoff team down the pipeline at the Missouri Valley. Of course, you have the top three in the Dakota States and South Dakota. But there is a fourth, and that would be Illinois State for sure. Speaking of South Dakota, they took care of North Dakota at North Dakota. The Fighting Hawks have really fallen off. We all did pick the Coyotes, and it didn't look like it for the first little bit. North Dakota did go out to, I believe it was a 14-point lead. South Dakota, yeah, they're better than North Dakota for sure. Moving right along here, if it'll let me. There we go. Harvard did beat Penn, took care of business. The Crimson, not by a lot. Field goal is all you need. And we did all pick the Crimson here. They are on a very nice run. And with Dartmouth falling off like they have, it really does look like Harvard's going to take the Ivy League. Actually, might end up being somewhat handily. Now, Tennessee State did beat Gardner-Webb. I have been hot and cold on this Tennessee State team all season. I don't know really what to think of them, but they keep winning most of their games and found their way into the Stats Perform Top 25 at number 25 for this coming weekend, which would be a fantastic matchup that we'll talk about in a little bit. But Tennessee State pulls it out, and then the Citadel beats Wofford in the second huge upset of the weekend. Tug was making a point. Why are we even picking this game? Well, this is why we're picking this game, because the Citadel's better than everybody thought, and Wofford fell off a cliff. So I didn't have the courage to actually pick the Citadel. I was thinking this was a theoretical possibility, but yeah, they came to play, and the Terriers did not. And we all picked Florida Atlantic in the Battle of the Owls. Temple did win at home in overtime. Makes some sense, I guess. Tom Herman did get fired. Florida Atlantic is going to be looking for a new head coach for next season. It was also hilarious to me. So Tom Herman fired their defensive coordinator. And then a couple days later, Tom Herman himself got fired. And then Florida Atlantic turned around and brought their defensive coordinator back, which is what a wild turn of events for that guy. But yeah, Florida Atlantic is not looking very good right now. They need something drastic to happen to turn that program around in a hurry. and it looked like there was some speculation Ray Lewis might end up the coach there. And then it turns out that that story was coming from Ray Lewis himself, and that nobody at the school ever thought of him as an actual possibility. So something to keep an eye on, though. It'd be very interesting. Yeah. I tried to call an upset with Maine at Elon. Ended up being a 7-point game. I don't feel too bad about it, but Elon did win over the Bears, as the boys picked correctly. And then Eastern Kentucky and Austin Peay went to overtime. I finally got an EKU pick right. I feel like I've gotten one other pick for EKU right this year. And the Colonels did me right this time. I think I'm done picking Eastern Kentucky games for the season, which isn't saying much. There's only like one more game. But go out on a high note with them for me. East Texas A&M wins their first ever game under the new name of East Texas A&M. Used to be Texas A&M Commerce. If you didn't keep up with the news, East Texas A&M now gets a win over Houston Christian, which just changed their name a couple years ago. Very, very exciting game. Ended up Houston Christian missed the game-winning field goal. Wait, there's a flag. It's on Houston Christian. So brutal way to end the game for Houston Christian, but East Texas A&M, huge celebration down there. And then Morehead State pulls off a big upset. We all picked Drake because, of course, we did. It's the Pioneer League this year. Seems like Drake's running through everybody. But Morehead State gets it done. They're coming home and playing a very tough game. Drake's already wrapped up this conference, but Morehead State has a chance to prove that they're right up there with the best of the Pioneer. It's a non-scholarship league. They're not going to get multiple playoff bids, but I like that it's getting a bit more competitive. It is more fun to see. Last 2 years have been kind of it's Drake's to lose. It would have been St. Thomas's to lose, but they weren't eligible. But St. Thomas is now a losing team in their own right. Lost to Butler this weekend. Not exactly up there in the Pioneer standings. But yeah, Butler started off so strong. That loss to Drake sent them spiraling for a bit. They're right back on the horse with a win against St. Thomas. And Tug finally picked against St. Thomas, and he got it right first time. Then down to Michigan State at Illinois. This game was not close at any point. We all picked Illinois. Very nice. Syracuse beat the snot out of Cal, honestly. Ended up being an 8-point game, but Syracuse played much better than Cal the entire game. We all picked Cal because it's at Cal. I mean, come on. Flying all the way, literally the entire width of the country. But Syracuse figured out how to get it done. And then Sam Houston got taken to overtime by Kennesaw State. I couldn't believe it, but they did win 23-17. And golly, Conference USA is so weird right now, with half of it being like first couple of year in the FBS type of programs. But yeah, Sam Houston's one of the better ones, at least. At least we got that right. Tennessee Tech, the bane of my existence in these pick'ems. They go out to UT Martin and find a way to win. I'm actually done picking Tennessee Tech games this year. This is literally the last one. I know I said last week that it might be the last one, and then we picked this one. I promise you will not see any more Tennessee Tech because I can't handle it emotionally, physically, spiritually. Jackson State wins at Alabama State, one of the closest games Jackson State's had to play all year. Very good one. And then Alcorn State doubled up Prairie View A&M because, of course, they did, because I picked Prairie View A&M in this game. That's how that works for me in the SWAC this year. And the one that we didn't pick out of the SWAC, wild, Mississippi Valley State got a win I couldn't believe it either. They won a game. It's a miracle. And against Florida A&M, no less. So it's really looking like the SWAC championship should end up being Jackson State against either. Well, I was going to say that I knew who it was going to be, but it'll be Jackson State against somebody out of the West. I guess Southern or Alcorn or probably one of those two. Well, we have a week to figure that out yet. Down in the Southland Conference, we all picked Incarnate Word against Stephen F. Austin. Incarnate Word's locked up that playoff spot now for sure. We all picked Notre Dame against Virginia. I had said this might be a little bit of a feisty one for Notre Dame, but they took care of business, no problems. And then SMU over Boston College, as we all picked as well. Not like SMU ever ran away with this one. It felt like Boston College was very much in it the entire way, to the extent you can be when you lose by 10. But, yeah, just a all-around, obviously, watching the game, obviously a better team over in SMU than what Boston College was fielding. Florida beat LSU last weekend. I wasn't ready for that. Tug wasn't ready for that. Bug's been trying to call Florida upset all season, so of course he ended up being ready for that. Come on. LSU is frustrating this year for me because I really feel like they have some good pieces, and I want to believe in those pieces. But they cannot figure out a way to put together the entire puzzle. And then North Dakota State over Missouri State answers a whole lot of questions that the front office of the conference didn't want to have to answer because Missouri State's moving up to the FBS next year and probably shouldn't be eligible for anything, but they hadn't made that official. And then the Bison took care of it for them, 59-21. This is a very good Bison team. Just prepare yourselves for another North Dakota State championship. That's what it feels like we're staring down. And USC took care of Nebraska. They didn't exactly put any doubts to rest here, but USC did win 28-20, as we all picked. Baylor knocked off West Virginia, because of course they did. Dave Aranda is now squarely in the safe zone instead of being on a hot seat. The job he's done to turn this season around is truly incredible. James Madison at Old Dominion was an awesome game. If you missed that, please do yourself a favor, figure out a way to go back and watch it, because really, truly a great game. JMU does win 35-32, as we all picked, but I knew Old Dominion would keep it close. And then Nichols at Lamar. Lamar ran away with it. Pretty surprised at that, but Tug and I did pick Lamar. So happy about it, nonetheless. Idaho State at Eastern Washington. This is crazy. Eastern Washington scored a touchdown every single time they touched the ball. Idaho State just couldn't keep up with that. You got to have a little bit of defense if you're going to win a football game. That would be ideal. Idaho State didn't do that, and so they lost 77-42 to Eastern Washington. We did all pick the Bengals. Pretty rough there for us. And South Carolina State mollywopped Morgan State 54-7. Yeah, South Carolina State's winning the MEAC once again. And then South Carolina, in the most Missouri way possible, Missouri figured out a way to lose to South Carolina. Honestly, Missouri lost in the most South Carolina way, too. Feels like some magic where South Carolina would have found out how to lose, but Missouri did it. If that made any sense to you, congratulations, by the way, because it didn't make even sense to me, and I was the one saying it. All right. Missouri should have won. They pulled defeat out of the jaws of victory and did it kicking and screaming, too. Like, Missouri should have won this game, but South Carolina does get it done 34-30. And then Southern Utah upsets Central Arkansas on the striped turf. We all picked the Bears. What a fall off for them. The start of the season was so strong. And then just in conference play, they're not getting it done. Opposite has been true for Rutgers. November's been great for the Scarlet Knights, as Tug and I both did pick over Maryland. And then Boise State doubles up San Jose State. This game was a lot closer than that for the first three quarters. And then Boise State just did end up running away with it. I guess literally, Ashton Genty did, but not how I meant it when I said it originally. Nice little turn of phrase there. Arizona State got out to a 24-0 lead on Kansas State before the Kansas State Wildcats did try to come back. Arizona State got it done 24-14. Now the Sun Devils and the BYU Cougars have a very, very important game this weekend that we will make picks for in just a second. And I am very excited about that one. Kind of the fate of the Big 12 playoff berth potential is in the hands of that game, and also what happens with Colorado, because I don't know that anybody else is really going to be in contention for that. Obviously, you win the conference, you're expecting you're going to be in. I'm not sure because there are some other things that could happen there. If Boise State wins the Mountain West, if Army upsets Notre Dame, you're looking at a Mountain West and an American champion that might outrank the Big 12 champion. You might see the Big 12 left out entirely. You need one Arizona State or BYU to really secure their spot this Saturday when they play each other. And then Abilene Christian got a nice win over Tarleton State. 4-point game. It was fantastic. 35-31 is the final there. It was a great game to watch. About the same time as that happened, I was getting the end of the Louisville game. Brutal. Just insane. Louisville looked like they were going to at least force overtime. And then they gave up a 15-yard unsportsmanlike and a 5-yard offsides back-to-back to set up the game-winning field goal for Stanford. We didn't pick that game because it's Louisville versus Stanford. I mean, what are we doing? Stanford got the upset. Unreal. I was kind of hoping for something similar with Oregon, Wisconsin, and I very nearly called this one because this is a lot closer than people thought it was going to be. 16-13 is final score. We did all take Oregon here, but yeah, not exactly a walk in the park for the Ducks. And then on to Georgia over Tennessee, probably the best game Carson Beck's played this entire season. Exactly the same game that Nico Iamaleava's been playing all season. So I honestly wouldn't be surprised if Tennessee gets left out of the playoff. Right now they're sitting at that number 11 spot, but based on where the conference champions end up with the current rankings, they would be left out of the 12-team playoff. I don't know. A lot of football to be played yet. Looks like I got the bold wrong on this. Iowa State won, not Cincinnati. I got the score right, but Cincinnati's bigger than Iowa State. I don't know why. Yeah, Iowa State won. And it wasn't close. 34-17. The Cyclones getting back to their winning ways. This North Carolina Wake Forest game was 31-24 for a long time. Like, they got to that score and then just settled into it was trench warfare the rest of the way. Unreal. But the Tar Heels do win. And last slide of games to wrap up last week's picks here. We all picked Memphis in the rack of ribs, which, yeah, of course, Memphis is going to win that game. I tried to go crazy and take UC Davis against Montana State, Ended up being way closer than it looked like it was going to be. I think it was 30-8 at one point. Ended up being 30-28. Montana State did hang on for the win. And then Washington State got upset by the Lobos of New Mexico, which I'm sure Bug was very thrilled about. One of the few upset calls he's got right this season, but he got this one, and it's finally officially knocks Washington State out of the playoff conversation. I don't think they had a realistic shot of getting in anyway. I mean, after this, they have, Utah State on the schedule and Oregon State. Not enough to convince the committee to move them up too much further. But, yeah, this knocks them out entirely for sure. After this week, not bad for Bug, 33-20 on the week. Tug did better, though, 36-17. And then that means I did get first place this week by one game, 37-16. Very nice. Love to see it. Still 2 games behind the Tugster, though, overall. 327, 325. And then Bug's down there at 302. Don't be surprised if Bug makes a miraculous comeback and picks every bowl game correct, because that has happened before. And he ended up winning when he was in third place. So I just don't count him out. This championship ain't over yet. Moving on to this weekend slate of games. I know UNLV San Jose State is tomorrow night, Friday night, if you're listening later. Tomorrow night as we're live here on Thursday. But didn't have us pick this one. We've been on top of the San Jose State story all season. We've also been picking a whole lot of UNLV games. And to be honest with you, I figured we were all going to take UNLV. Maybe I'm wrong about that, but I just figured we have enough going on Saturday. Let's focus on Saturday and get started off with a top 5 matchup in the shoe here. Indiana at Ohio State. We're all taking the Buckeyes, which I'm kind of okay with right now. I know normally I'm very much not okay with everyone taking Ohio State. As an Ohio State fan, it upsets me when we have potential to beam ourselves on the Buckeyes. Here's the thing. After watching what Indiana struggled with when they played the team up north last week, I feel a bit more confident in our ability to stop them. Now, the cause for concern is the fact that Seth McLaughlin got hurt. Our transfer center from Alabama, who's been phenomenal this season and one of the true engines of this offense for sure. He got hurt in practice, tore his Achilles. He's out for the season. Hate to hear it for, his sake, but also, oh my gosh, what is Ohio State going to do on this offensive line now? Already really thin, especially on the outside. I think what this does is put last year's starting center back in at center in Carson Hinsman. And we probably have, who would we even want to play at guard at that point? I assume we're leaving Dominic Jackson at left tackle. I mean, Austin Severfield at guard potentially. You're going to have to see what that looks like. I'm not certain. Either way, I think we can handle that side of the defensive line for Indiana. It's not like teams haven't been able to run on them when, they get going. I'm thinking of last week, team up north can't run on anybody this year because they're so one-dimensional. It's no-dimensional. But I think we'll be okay. I really do. This is a top 5 matchup, though. Definitely can't be overlooking them. And I don't think they will. I don't think the Buckeyes will be overlooking this one at all. One that might get overlooked, Ole Miss heading down to Florida. Of course, Bug's calling for the upset once again. Ole Miss is still a top 10 team. Yeah, they cannot afford to look ahead at all. I know that next week is just the Egg Bowl. And I'm saying just the Egg Bowl pretty loosely there because there are always some crazy, crazy shenanigans that happen in the Egg Bowl, even if Mississippi State's one of the worst teams in the FBS right now. We'll see what happens heading down to the swamp. I kind of respect the Gators pick here from Bug. And then SMU at Virginia. Once again, just kind of thinking Virginia could be a sneaky, difficult team for somebody more talented to handle. We are all picking the ponies, though, of SMU to take care of business. Moving right along, Illinois at Rutgers. Illinois got ranked once again after dismantling the Spartans. But Tug and I are taking the Rutgers Scarlet Knights. Got to ride with the hot hand. I don't feel like Illinois is actually worthy of being a top 25 team right now. This game will be on Peacock. Best Peacock game of the season for sure. UConn at Syracuse, a battle of some surprisingly 7-win teams. Wild that UConn got this good this quickly. I don't think they're good enough to actually compete. It's at Syracuse. Bogue and Tugger are right alongside me in thinking this way. We're all taking the orange over a surprising, once again, I don't know what other word to use there, UConn team who is going bowling this season. That feels weird too. All right, North Carolina at Boston College is on the CW. Which means crazy things can happen. And I'm taking the Tar Heels. Yes, I understand Bug and Tug taking the Eagles at Boston College, but it's on the CW and feels like there's been an opposite trajectory for both these teams here. North Carolina started real slow and has been getting a little bit better. Boston College is kind of going the other way, it feels like, especially with Castellanos now off the team, transferring out. I don't really know what Boston College's true identity is on offense right now. I'm not sure if they know either. North Carolina's been figuring that out all season long. Feels like they might have something of an answer. The way they handled Wake Forest, I know it was a 7-point game, but the way they handled their business there gives me some confidence they're going to go into Chapel Hill and pull this one out. I actually don't know if this would be an upset. Technically speaking, like if we look at the odds of the game, I'm trying to find that right now while we are talking. Even if it's not, I mean, it does feel kind of crazy to me to be taking North Carolina here. North Carolina's 2.5-point favorite. That is wild. If I'm betting, I'm taking Boston College against the spread there. I don't like that line. But I am picking North Carolina because I'm nuts. Moving right along here. Sam Houston at Jacksonville State. A battle of two very solid teams right now in Conference USA. I'm not really sure what this does as far as like a championship game is concerned. Let me try to find that real quick because both these teams are right up there in the standings. Jacksonville State's undefeated in Conference USA, I know for sure. And Sam Houston's tied with Western Kentucky for second right now. So here's the crazy thing. If Sam Houston wins this and then Jacksonville State beats Western Kentucky, there will be a rematch of this exact game in the Conference USA Championship. But we're all picking Jax State to knock off Sam Houston. And then if that happens, we'd be guaranteed, assuming Western Kentucky wins this weekend, we'd be guaranteed back-to-back games of Jacksonville State, Western Kentucky next week and the championship game. It'd be kind of fun too. Either way, what a strong finish for the Conference USA season. Then we're looking at William & Mary at Richmond. We're all taking the Spiders. But William & Mary is one of those teams that just likes to beat some people sometimes. I'm interested in how this one turns out. It will very much so affect the CAA standings. Richmond doesn't have it on lock just yet, but very well could. If they win this, they will be the outright CAA champions. Then Yale at Harvard. Of course, big game of the Ivy League season. We're all taking Harvard, though. What a great turnaround they've had. I know we keep saying that. They're only a one-loss team, but it feels like they were really struggling, and then they really hit their stride. And this is a pretty formidable Harvard squad. Moving right along, Cornell at Columbia. I was floored. I saw the guys taking Cornell. I did at first because I assumed I'd be different. But then they both also picked Cornell. So I changed it to Columbia because this is who I thought was going to win all along. I was just trying to be different. So Columbia is the much better team, in my opinion. I really don't see a reason why Cornell should win this game. For some reason, it was all of our first instinct to pick the Bears, though. Not the Bears, the Big Red, whatever they call themselves. There's a bear on the logo I'm looking at right now. Made me think of the Bears. It also would be Lions and Bears then, which would be way more fun. The Lions versus a Big Red thing, not the case. Anyway, whatever. Columbia is the better team. Columbia should win. It's also at Columbia. What are we doing? So, I mean, maybe take that into consideration if you're trying to be a real degenerate and gamble on some Ivy League games for some reason. First of all, why? Second of all, maybe consider Cornell because apparently there's some reason that we were all kind of drawn to it. Columbia really should win this game, though. Duquesne at Central Connecticut. The winner of this matchup will get the NEC automatic bid to the playoffs. The loser of this game will certainly be left out of those same playoffs because even if Central Connecticut pulls off the upset, nobody's letting a Duquesne team that didn't win the conference in the playoffs. Are you kidding me? At the same time here, they're both, Bug and Tug are both taking Central Connecticut. It's a cool story. It would be fun for them to get their first ever playoff berth. I really do feel like Duquesne's the better team. I got to go with the Dukes. And it would be a cool story. Lafayette at Lehigh, the original game. The game. We're all taking the Mountain Hawks. This rivalry goes back and forth who dominates it for a set of time. It was Lafayette's for a while. Lehigh has come back, and they're in control of their own destiny in the Patriot League. If they win here, they're Patriot League champs. If they falter, though, Holy Cross will be there to sweep it up, assuming they can handle their business at Georgetown, which is why we're also picking this game here. Georgetown's been pretty good this season, but Holy Cross has definitely got it going as of late. We're all taking the Crusaders. And Western Kentucky at Liberty. Of course, a big matchup here, depending on a couple of things going their way. Liberty technically could still make the Conference USA title game. I kind of doubt that will happen, and we're all taking Western Kentucky in this matchup, even though it's at Liberty. I'm certainly rooting for the Toppers. I know that for sure. New Hampshire at Maine. I'm trying to call another Maine upset. This one's at Maine, at least. I feel better about that. But also, New Hampshire likes to upset teams, too. Who knows what's going to happen when you get a couple of them together. The battle of the mid in the CAA, I guess. Could have been the battle for the CAA title here, but of course Delaware had to go on and jump up to the FBS level starting next season, so it won't count for that. But Delaware is at Villanova this weekend. Massive game for the Wildcats for sure. If they really want to seed in the playoffs, they're going to need to win this. Delaware, of course, ineligible just about anything, but we are picking the Blue Hens to win this game. Monmouth at Stony Brook. if Stony Brook wants to get into the playoffs, they better figure out a way to beat Monmouth. They are at home. Bug and I are taking the Sea Wolves, and Tug taking the upset. This would assuredly knock Stony Brook out of the playoffs entirely. If Monmouth can pull this off, I doubt that they do. But that's why we play the games. And then North Dakota at Illinois State. As we've been talking about, North Dakota really fell off cliff got in the middle of the season. And Bug just hates Illinois State, so he's never going to take them. But it really does feel like Illinois State should handle business here at home against the Fighting Hawks and pretty much lock themselves up a playoff spot with a win here. Next, San Diego at Morehead State. Morehead's been turning it on as of late. Got that big upset over Drake. I kind of like the Toreros. I know it's a little bit of a cross-country battle here, and I'm rooting against my own home state. At the same time, I'm trying to be different to some extent. That is a factor here, unfortunately. Got to be honest with everybody. I'm taking San Diego to – I don't know if this would be an upset or not. It feels like a pretty evenly matched game. If this were like neutral site, it'd just be a straight pick 'em. I wouldn't even have us – I don't know what I would do. Just give us all points, I guess. But it's at Morehead State. So I'm sure that was the influencing decision for Tug, at least, taking the Eagles. Very potentially Bug as well. St. Francis at Mercyhurst to wrap up the NEC season for Mercyhurst, I believe. In their inaugural, that's not a word, inaugural FCS season, first year as a Division I team. We're all taking St. Francis in this matchup, though. Little in-state rivalry game there potentially in the future. Chattanooga is at Austin Peay. Austin Peay has been performing better than I feel like they should as of late. I'm still taking Chattanooga here. Tug's right there with me, taking the Mocs. But, of course, Bug has to go Peay. Massive game in the Big Sky. Montana at Montana State. Montana is the number 8 team in the country, I believe. Montana State, the number 2 team in the country. We're all taking the home team Bobcats. I don't know if that's the best idea. This rivalry goes every which way. Whenever it feels like it. It's anybody's game, to be honest with you. This is going to be phenomenal. I can't wait to see this one. South Dakota is hosting the Bison of North Dakota State. Number 1 versus number 4. What a slate at 2 p.m. on ESPN Plus this weekend in the FCS. We are all taking the Bison, however, at South Dakota. Feels like a mistake. Again, but we're all taking the Bobcats. We're all taking the Bison. At the same time, these should be 2 sensational games. And then Dayton is at St. Thomas, a little bit more Pioneer League action on Midco Sports Plus, where all the St. Thomas home games are. We're all taking the Tommies. Getting back to some FBS action, James Madison is headed over to Appalachian State, a team that I kind of gave up talking about this year in Appalachian State. Really let me down in a big way. Not pulling off the kind of upsets they're used to pulling off. This will be a big one, and we're all taking James Madison in this matchup. Louisiana Monroe has a shot here to really stake their claim as a bowl team for sure. Knock off Arkansas State at Arkansas State in Jonesboro. We're all taking ULM. And we're all taking Charlotte at Florida Atlantic. I've been talking about this interim head coach boost that teams just always seem to get for 1 or 2 games. It's at FAU with a new coach. Here's the thing, though. Charlotte fired Biff Poggi as well. We're getting interim versus interim action in the American when we see Charlotte at Florida Atlantic. We're all picking the 49ers. And then Central Arkansas is at Tarleton State. Again, I talked about it a little bit already. I feel like I've been talking about it for a couple of weeks. Central Arkansas has fallen off so hard. They get in the conference play. Just, something is not working for them on the offensive side of the ball, at least. We saw it a little bit last year, too, I will say. And then this year hit them way harder. They're at Tarleton State. Tug and I are going with the Texans. Lindenwood at UT Martin. I don't know that I expect this to be a great game. Like, I don't know that I realistically give Lindenwood a shot to knock off the Skyhawks. Well, the big reason I'm having us pick this game, though, is for the chance to talk about the possibilities of that Big South OVC title. Because UT Martin is kind of still in the conversation, depending on some tiebreakers and such. We're all taking the Skyhawks here. I think that's what everybody expects. Lindenwood could really shake up the Big South OVC picture with an upset here. None of us think it's going to happen, though. Eastern Washington at Northern Arizona. Two very hot and cold Big Sky teams right in the middle of the Big Sky. Bug and I going with the Lumberjacks. Tug taking the offensive firepower that Eastern Washington just has, apparently, out of nowhere, all of a sudden. Very fun for the Eagles. South Dakota State at Missouri State up next. All taking the Jackrabbits. We're all taking the Hornets of Alabama State at home against Prairie View A&M. And we're all taking the Tigers of Jackson State that are heading out to Alcorn State this weekend. 3 for 3 for 3 of all the same team on this slide. Almost the same deal here. We're all taking Abilene Christian against Stephen F. Austin. We're all taking Penn State against Minnesota, even at a hot Minnesota team. But Bug and I are taking Western Carolina, and Tug is picking the home team, Samford, in that matchup. Samford is not the same team they have been for the past couple of years. I really do expect the Catamounts to pull this one out, but Tug's rocking with the hometown Bulldogs of Samford. Going back to that Penn State-Minnesota game, Minnesota really is on a tear. I don't think this will be a walk in the park for Penn State by any means. They're really going to have to be able to move the ball on this Gophers squad, and that's something that Penn State doesn't usually like to do. So we'll see what happens. We are all taking the Nittany Lions, though. Moving right along, BYU at Arizona State, that huge Big 12 matchup we were talking about a little bit ago. It's at Arizona State. Here's the crazy part to me, though. It feels like that makes it more likely that BYU is going to win, if that makes any sense. Probably doesn't. Need to explain myself a little bit. Defense travels. And Arizona State lives off emotion to some extent. It feels like they're a young team with a young head coach. It happens all the time. You get out in those hostile environments, it fires you up a little bit more. I don't know that they're in a position to really take the reins of a game. They're at home, and that, they really need to show up for the first quarter. I feel like BYU is going to be able to pull this one out. But I would love to see Arizona State win the Big 12. It'd be very fun. And Tug is taking the Sun Devils here. Bug and I are taking the Cougars of BYU. And then Colorado at Kansas, another massive game with huge implications for the Big 12. If Kansas can pull off another upset, we might be down to 3: BYU, Arizona State, and Iowa State. Even with a loss, the loser, BYU, Arizona State, could still be in the conversation. If Kansas pulls off another upset here, we are all taking the Buffaloes, though. And then Wisconsin at Nebraska. Nebraska needs this one to get bowl eligible. I don't remember. Does Wisconsin also need this to get bowl eligible? It feels like it's close. If not, either way, both teams desperately want to win here. That's for sure. Wisconsin's 5-5. Nebraska is also 5-5. This is a tough one. My deciding factor, I went with the home team. That is Nebraska. Bug's right there with me, going with the Huskers, and then Tug is taking Bucky Badger down there. I don't blame him at all. This feels like a coin toss and a half. Who knows who's going to pull out of this one? Wisconsin at Nebraska, massive Big Ten implications. That was a joke. It doesn't have any implications. Stanford at Cal, the big game. ACC Classic on the ACC network here. Rivalry game. Tug's picking the underdog, Stanford. I feel like with Stanford's win over Louisville last week, that actually hurts them a bit. Cal knows what's ahead of them and what a little bit of what to look out for. I'm going with the Golden Bears, as is Bug. And then we are all taking my alma mater, the Louisville Cardinals, to pull off the home win against Pitt. They need it so badly. If they lose to Pitt, oh gosh, people are going to be pretty upset. I know that. SEMO is at Tennessee State. The actual, I don't know if this is the de facto Big South OVC championship. Like I just talked about how UT Martin's kind of still technically in the conversation. They would need Tennessee State to win this. I think then it might come down to like points scored, common opponents, that kind of stuff. I don't remember how the tiebreakers work out. Either way, Tennessee State needs to win this one, win it definitively if they want that playoff spot for the Big South OVC. It should be SEMO who wins this. They are the better team. But I've been picking Tennessee State wrong all season, so who the hell knows what I'm talking about? I don't know. So I'm going with the Tigers. I'm going with the exact opposite of my own logic because that's the way Tennessee State games have gone this year. That's my entire reasoning. Tug's right there with me, of course, because he's never going to pick SEMO. He can't stand him. And then, or Bug. And then Tug is taking SEMO. Bug has weird rivalries. It's fun. Idaho at Idaho State. Remember that Vandals team that was so fun earlier in the year? We've kind of dropped them off the face of the earth in favor of a wilder and more exciting, though less good, Idaho State team as of the past couple of weeks. They collide here. We're all taking the Vandals. Should very much so be a playoff team in Idaho. As long as they win, at least, I guess. Not much more to add there, to be honest with you. Army at Notre Dame, what I was just talking about with the Big 12 scenario, the nightmare scenario for the Big 12, is Army winning this matchup here. Because if Army pulls off the upset, I know it says at Notre Dame. Technically, this game's being played at Yankee Stadium. I don't know that there's anywhere in the country Notre Dame and Army could play and it not be a home game for Notre Dame, though. I guess if you're on an Army base. But, come on. Notre Dame is one of the biggest fan bases in the world. So, If Army pulls this out and Boise State wins out, which we're taking that game too, Boise State at Wyoming, because it's at Wyoming and crazy stuff happens there. But we're all taking Boise State, and then Bug here is taking Army. Now, if both those teams win and they win their conference championships, all goes to plan, there is a very real scenario that they are both ranked ahead of whoever the Big 12 champion ends up being. If that is the case, we're looking at a bye for Boise State, and we're looking for Army being in the playoffs and the Big 12 being left out entirely. Feels insane. It is very possible. All it takes this weekend is for the Army Black Knights to take out the Fighting Irish. Tug and I are taking Notre Dame, though. Does feel like the better team, the more well-rounded team. But Army didn't lose to Northern Illinois, and Notre Dame did. So anything's possible. Like I already alluded to, we are all taking Boise State, but it is at Wyoming. So I wanted to keep track of this game because wild stuff happens there in Laramie. Who knows? Washington State at Oregon State is on the CW. I expect the Cougars to get back to their winning ways. Tug's right there with me. But then we're all taking Baylor over Houston, and we're all taking Alabama over Oklahoma. Two road warriors we're predicting here. Houston's not good. I didn't think Baylor was going to be good. Then they kind of are. So we're all taking the Bears. And then Alabama is better than Oklahoma. I do believe that to be true. I'm not like certain that Alabama's going to walk away with this one. They have the talent to, but we've seen Alabama struggle with Vanderbilt, for example. If somebody gets them into a real defensive slugfest, watch out for Oklahoma here. But we are all taking the Crimson Tide. I do think Alabama will win. I did pick them, but I've said crazier things before. Texas A&M at Auburn. Yeah, we're taking the Aggies. I don't remember why I thought this was an interesting matchup. To be honest with you, I think the only thing I'm thinking of is there is a possibility Texas A&M is looking ahead to their game with Texas, which then would decide which one of them, either Texas A&M or Texas, would get a spot in the SEC title game. Or both, I guess. It's possible. They would need a few different things to happen. They're not in control of that destiny. But if Texas A&M overlooks heading to Auburn, that could be an issue. We're all taking the Aggies, though. Marshall at Old Dominion. I'm finally popping it. I'm taking the upset here. Old Dominion's got to win one of these games. They've been so dang close so many times. I'm taking the Monarchs. But, of course, Bug and Tug are taking Marshall. Then Vanderbilt at LSU. Who the heck knows, man? LSU's up and down, spin around, do-si-do this season. But kind of so is Vanderbilt. Bug's going with Vanderbilt just because he can. It is fun. It's fun to think about. Tug and I are going with LSU. It is in Death Valley. Only a couple more slides here. Cincinnati at Kansas State. We're all taking the Wildcats. Virginia Tech at Duke. I'm trying something here. I'm going with the Hokies. Duke's been playing pretty dang well this season. Hats off to them, seriously. Virginia Tech's still a very talented team. I want to give that respect to the Hokies. I'm taking them in. I think this would be considered an upset. Let me double check that live here because it doesn't sound right as I'm saying it, actually. It is Virginia Tech by 3 right now. Huh. That's wild. A 5-5 team's favored over a 7-3 Duke team. But I kind of see it. I am picking the Hokies here. And Lamar is at McNeese. Kind of a fitting end to the season for either one of these squads. What a great season for McNeese, all things considered, the way things have been going the past few years. What an awesome season and a couple of really phenomenal players. You will see a couple of McNeese guys get drafted in April, I fully expect. And then Lamar has had a very solid season for Lamar, at least, as well, down there in the Southland. Very fun to watch this season. And to see them square off as the last game of the year for them, too, pretty fitting. And then our last slide of the week, the battle for the victory bell, USC at UCLA, the color rivalry. It's always great to see the red versus the blue. We're all taking the Trojans, which I understand, but also am surprised at because not like USC's truly that much better than UCLA right now. Colorado State at Fresno State. I'm done pretending that Colorado State's not a good team. They just are for some reason, I guess. I'm taking the Rams. And so is Tug, but Bug is sticking to his guns and taking Fresno State. And then Air Force at Nevada. Now, I'm not picking this to make fun of either of these squads. They're both 3-win teams. But also, I do think this game will be actually pretty interesting. So Air Force has won the past couple of games here now by just controlling time of possession, dominating time of possession. If a team can break that, I think it could be Nevada at home. It's actually a very fascinating matchup game here to me. I am going with the Wolfpack. I don't actually believe in either of these squads. This could fail miserably is what I'm preparing you for. But it also could be a phenomenal strength-on-strength matchup, as weak as those strengths may be in a couple of 3-win teams here this deep into the season. But that is the show this week. A lot of me talking to a camera, so I'm not reading anything else out to you. Bug will get this edited and up at some point, I believe. Hopefully. If you want to talk to us, feel free to do so especially on Discord or on X, as I said at the top of the show. Recommend checking this podcast out live. Get your questions in on the air. We'll talk about them together. And then next week, Thanksgiving week, the show should be on Wednesday, the night before Thanksgiving. Get you ready for rivalry week out in the FBS. Very big, very exciting week with a couple of big ones down the pipeline. So thank you everybody for tuning in if you did, and I will see y'all around. Have a good one.